The Ludus, Ashes over Pompeii. Chapter 2, The Arrival. Maximus dismounted and tied his horse to a fallen pine trunk. He stepped to the gate and saw a knocker, a lion's head cast in brass, a heavy ring in its mouth. Maximus took the ring and let it fall. The gate shuddered. A moment later, footsteps, light, quick footsteps. A lock creaked. The gate opened slowly, a hand's width, and in the darkness beyond stood a boy, 12 perhaps. Between his legs a small cat peered out. Curious who might have wandered into this desolate place. Maximus studied the boy and his companion, then said, "I am Maximus Valerius. Titus is expecting me." The boy stepped aside and bid Maximus enter. The state of the estate within matched its appearance from without. Decay had taken hold here too. Maximus stood on a kind of training ground, sand with a wooden post at its center. To his right, the main house, 2 stories of dark, tough stone, with a covered gallery on the upper floor that overlooked the entire yard. To his left, a row of heavy iron doors, the Gladiators' cells. Some closed, some open, hinges bent, the wood behind them rotting. One door missing entirely. Before it, scattered in the sand, the tools of their trade. Wooden swords, worn smooth by 1,000 strikes. Shields, cracked and crudely patched. The post at the center of the yard, its true purpose clearer now. Not a monument, a sparring partner. 2 men leaned against the wall, no longer young, no longer particularly strong. They looked at Maximus, said nothing. A little further on, a low passage cut into the rock. Beyond it, half carved into the cliff, the life of the Ludus. A gathering hall with long wooden tables, blackened with soot from years of shared meals. A hearth, cold. The forge beside it silent, the anvil rusted, the tools untouched for months. The bath cracked, the basin empty but for a finger's depth of cloudy water. The clay pipes clogged or broken, hard to say which. In one corner, the animal cages, bent, the bars forced apart in one place. From within came a low, dull snort. Maximus stopped, looked through the bent bars. A hippopotamus, gray, massive. It looked back at him. "Who keeps a hippopotamus on a mountain?" he murmured. The cage did not inspire confidence. And at the very end, barely larger than a cell, a small shrine. A goddess of terracotta, her face worn smooth by many hands that had sought favor before battle. At the edge of the outcrop, where the training ground ended without warning and the cliff began, stood a winch. Solid timber, heavy ropes, a wide platform that lowered into the depths. Supplies, animals, everything the Ludus needed that would not fit through the gate came up from below, or went down to it. Maximus stepped closer and looked over the edge. Far below, Pompeii, the arena, the docks, the rooftops glowing in the evening light as if all were well. A familiar voice broke his survey, calling his name, drawing near fast. It was Titus, hurrying across the training ground at a run, a small gray man in a white tunic and worn sandals. He stopped before Maximus, studied him briefly, then nodded with the stoic look of a man rarely surprised. "Good to have you here, at last." A short pause. 5 years, and you've become a man." He tilted his head slightly. "I'm impressed." Maximus removed his helmet. Then he smiled, for the first time in days, perhaps longer. He stepped toward Titus and embraced him. Titus returned the embrace, brief, proper, with the faint awkwardness of a man to whom tenderness is foreign, but not unwelcome. "Come," said Titus, "there's much to discuss." He led Maximus into the main house. A narrow corridor led to the Lanista's office. The room was not large. A desk of dark wood, a chair, an oil lamp, and parchment everywhere. Scrolls on the table, on the floor, on shelves threatening to buckle beneath their weight. Titus poured Maximus a cup of wine and set a plate of bread and olives on the table. Then he sat behind the desk, and his expression grew serious. "Your uncle ran this Ludus with great passion. Unfortunately, he lacked one important talent." He leaned back. "The talent of making money." Maximus emptied his cup and took a few bites of bread. Titus refilled it and continued. "This place has more creditors than a Roman senator has enemies. And that," Titus said dryly, "is saying something." He slid a document across the table. "What is this?" Maximus asked. "A way out." Titus leaned back. "Your uncle had few friends of influence in Pompeii, save one, a man named Gaius Petronius." He gestured toward the letter. "You should call on him and ask for a loan." He pushed the paper closer to Maximus. "It only needs your signature." Maximus stared at the page. "That's a great deal of money." "It is," said Titus, "which is why we need someone who has it." Maximus looked at him. "How much do we already owe him?" 50,000 denarii, said Titus, plus interest. The bread caught in Maximus's throat. "And you think he'll lend us more?" "Trust me," Titus folded his hands. "He will." Reluctantly, Maximus reached for the pen, dipped it in the inkwell, and signed. Without another word, he slid the paper back to Titus, who waved it briefly in the air, folded it carefully, and sealed it with red wax. The cold seal hissed softly as it pressed into the hot wax, like a branding iron on an ox's hide. Shortly after, Titus called the boy from the gate and handed him the letter, with instructions to deliver it to Gaius Petronius and request a meeting. The boy nodded and vanished as lightly as he had appeared. Maximus finished the last of the bread and emptied his cup. The weariness of the long journey caught up with him, in a yawn he could not suppress. Titus noticed, rose, and led Maximus up the stairs to his room. Furnished plainly, with a bed, a hearth, and a veranda overlooking the yard, Titus took his leave without many words. Maximus opened the door to the veranda and felt the cool night air of Pompeii drift in. He set down his armor, put out the light, and climbed into bed. The hearth fire fought the cold a while longer, until it died with a red glimmer. On the veranda, hidden in the darkness, the little cat sat watching the sleeping newcomer from a safe distance. She seemed to wonder, or so it appeared, what he was seeking here, and how long he might stay. What remained was the cold light of moon and stars, burning brighter out here than in Rome itself.